No prizes today because Karen said it first.
Yay!
Karen gets a prize.
I get to have my assassin background for the entire day today.
Sure, that's fine with me.
It's my prize.
Okay, so business. Please play D&D by Monday. Once again, DMs. Once you've played, please email me, and please include the names of all your players and say, hey, we played, everything was fine, or this person left after an hour, or this person was a jerk. And just let me know what happened. You don't have to write an essay or anything, just a quick, everything went fine, or I couldn't find anyone, no one replied to me, and so we didn't play, right?
Isn't there a
Okay,
video?
Mike, I posted a video on how to make, here, let's do this. Sorry. Copy. I will.
Beat ya.
Okay, good. Then you do it.
I
Go.
already had it lined up.
That is a tutorial on how to make the character sheets in Roll20. So send me an email. Also, once you're done playing, send all your players a link to the Dungeon Master Guild, the place where you purchased the adventure. Once again, the adventure costs $3.99. Please purchase it so that the person who wrote it, it doesn't say who wrote it. How can that be? That seems kind of bad. Shouldn't it say Cloaks and Shadows? It doesn't say. Huh. Okay. Well, this person, it should have an author, but anyway, so the author can actually be rewarded for writing something that is so good that I want to use it for my class. And then please read that. By Tuesday, we're going to talk about the differences between what you experienced playing it and what you read it, what it was like reading it. Spoiler, you probably get a lot more detail from reading it than playing it, right? You'll know why things happened. The joke among old Pathfinder modules is you will get a detailed backstory of the bad guy that you killed in 12 seconds, right? There's a big bug, half bug, half man, who lurches out of the darkness towards you. Okay, I cast fireball. Okay, it dies. When you read that adventure, you'll know exactly why that bug man was in the darkness, how he got to be there, and how he got turned into half bug, half man, right? So please read that. Also, for on Sunday at 3, I will be playing the Stanley Parable. And you can spend a lot of hours playing this Stanley Parable. There are lots of paths through it. I'll probably go about 2 hours and call it. So if you're playing the Stanley Parable on your own because you picked it up for free on the Epic Store, then uh, don't kill yourself trying to see every possible ending. There's one that you have to do a repetitive action for 4 hours before you see how it ends. That's probably not a good use of your time. If you really want to see how that turns out, I recommend searching on YouTube, right? And you can see how it turns out. So please play the Stanley Parable, probably for like Tuesday. We'll get to it. And then Thursday or Friday, we'll talk about uh, the Beginner's Guide and Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Really Big Heist, or something like that. I assigned all of that during 1 week because essentially 2 people made the Stanley Parable, and one of them went off to make the Beginner's Guide, and the other went off to make Dr. Langeskov, the Tiger, and the Really Big Heist, or whatever it's called. So you're basically seeing the first game from these people and then the second game. The Beginner's Guide, I checked in the last class. Let's pull it up. Beginner's Guide. I have total playtime on the Beginner's Guide of 3 hours, but I would bet a good portion of that is me using it as example. Well, at least an hour of that is me using it as examples in class and pulling it up to show people sections of it from various saves. So I would bet it's an hour and a half to 2 hours. And Dr. Langeskov, let's see, Dr. Do I have it here? No. Let's go down here. Dr. Langeskov, The Tiger and the Terribly Cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist. I have total playtime of 2 hours. I honestly think you can get through it in like 20 minutes. It's not a very long game at all. But I only have 1 achievement. Oh, I'm going to have to do this one for achievements this time. I have to steal things, cut power to all the lights, refuse to clean up after yourself, steal your first 5 francs. The only achievement I have for this game is start the game. I'm going to have to fix that. Okay. Doing it for Chivos. Also, there's reading to be done. And of course, there will be another quiz next week. The quiz is due. Let me just check. This is 02. So the quiz is due at 11:59 tonight. And the character sheets are due also at 11:59 tonight. So please get those things in so that I can give you points for doing them. And the reading for next week is the Glassner Chapter 12, the D&D adventure, and then I've got some chapters of transmedia to read. Remember, I'm banking them for 2 weeks from now, when we're gonna talk basically about all of transmedia. So I actually have a fair amount of transmedia for you guys to read this week. So get started on the reading. If you're not playing D&D, read the book. And that's business. Is there anything I've forgotten? Karen, do you remember anything?
Let me double check my list I wrote down. I gotta find it.
Okay. That's fine.
Wednesday, Vinegar's Side, Langus Side. No, you've got everything.
Yeah, okay. Also, oh, one other thing, I will, when I post the link to the D&D story, I will post links to two other D&D adventures. Um, that's don't kill yourself reading them over. It's so that you I'm going to ask you to write your own D&D adventure, and those are to give you some examples more than, because here's what happens if I give you just the adventure that you play. What I see when everybody writes an adventure is they they rewrite the adventure that they played with different monsters. So instead of stumbling into the kobold village, you stumble into the goblin village, right? Um, and what I want you to do is for you to come up with your own adventure. So I'm going to give you some uh, fairly different adventures to read. Um, in fact, I think I'll even give you an adventure in Pathfinder, which is a different system entirely, so that you can see that you can tell a story without worrying about all the stats. It's not about the stats; it's about the areas and the rooms and the connecting tissue. That's your job. Um, so I want you to look at the format um, and use them as examples when you start writing your own. But I'll talk about that more on Monday and Tuesday. Uh, okay. So when last we met, I was talking about dividing up. Let's go to the whiteboard. I was talking about dividing up stories and then generating them procedurally. So this is Act 1, this is Act 2, this is Act 3. And then we divide up dramas into first acts, and then we divide up dramas into scenes. And I talked about beats. And we can assign each scene a numerical value. So that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 3, that's say a 4. And if this is an act break, and let's make that line thicker so that we know what an act break is and what a scene break is. So then what we can do is collect a whole bunch of scenes that say they're two-person scenes, and we just rename all the two-person scenes to the same two characters, A and B, right? Instead of Trip and Grace, they're A and B. And instead of Romeo and Juliet, they are A and B, right? Yeah, you can. Griffin, you can use any other stuff you want. But I'll talk about that next week. Don't put the cart before the horse. So we have all these two-person scenes, and we can pull them from all sorts of stories. And each one will have, if it's an Act 1 scene, it will have some sort of action numerical value assigned to it, right? And we can in general say that, in fact, let's go up from there. We can say right here, this is a 5, and any scene with an action value of 5 or under is an Act 1 scene. We can just define it that way and say, okay, now we've got a bucket. and we put all Act 1 scenes in the bucket, and they're from many, many stories, but they're all two-person scenes. Oh wow, it's hailing out. That's exciting. Soon locusts. So then I can write an algorithm, right? And I can say, we need an Act 1. So, Mr. Algorithm, pull up any scene with an action level less than 5, right? So, algorithm randomly generates a number and comes up with 2. Okay, so our first scene for our new procedurally generated story is a 2. And then algorithm says, okay, let's pull another one. We can't go down in action, so we've already started with a 2. And this is we're writing an Act 1, so pull me another scene that's somewhere between 2 and 5, right? And it pulls another 2. So now we got 2, 2, and then we just arbitrarily say, okay, Act 1 is going to be 5 scenes long, making it up. So we have 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And as soon as it hits 5, or it can't, like we've got a 4, so we have to pull a 5. So it might be 2, 2, 3, 5, or 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, right? Some arbitrary collection of first act scenes. Now our first act is done. Now we're going to start pulling second acts. And second act is somewhere between 5 and, let's say, 10. Third act climax goes to 15. And then we can even divide denouement into third act, but less than 15, but more than halfway. So less than 15, but more than 13. Or maybe we have an entire separate bin of denouement scenes, right? Boom, we've got a story. A computer generated them, even though each scene was written by a person. Guess what? That's pretty much what they did for Facade. Remember, sometimes I know in my 4 playthroughs last weekend, sometimes we'd get the do you want red wine or white wine argument from Trip and Grace. Sometimes I got the do you want a foo-foo cocktail or just a glass of wine argument from Trip and Grace. Sometimes we got Grace. I think we always got Grace talking about her interior decorating. One time we got a phone call from Trip's parents, and then we got into the whole Trip's parents thing. But each time we went through the story, we had some commonalities. I think every time Grace talks about her interior decorating, but we also had some mixing and matching. Then at a certain point in the game, either Trip or Grace says, okay, your name, tell me this, yes or no. Should someone in a relationship try to improve the other person, right? And you would type yes or no. Don't forget the Trip made called Grace's Inner Demons or something like that. Yeah, there are various things. But every time there comes a point where there's a yes or no question. And the yes or no question will be different depending on which scenes you got in the preceding act, and how you develop the relationships, right? So in Facade, those yes or no questions are basically the act breaks, where they basically say, stop typing. I have a question for you, yes or no. And depending on how you answer that, it generates the very next scene of the second act and how the second act is going to go, right? And then there's a second time where you get a yes or no question, and from that, it generates your ending, right? So um, it's very much big bins of scenes, or at least big bins of subplots, because like I got the I cheated on Grace with Maria trip thing. Somebody else got that Maria or that Grace cheated on Trip. There's also the secrets of how insecure Trip feels about being poor. There's the secrets of how insecure Grace feels, I think, about her art, and that she's secretly taking these art classes. So there's all sorts of kind of beats in there that you won't see from one to the other. This goes back to the idea is that if we get every scene from every story in there, we can procedurally generate any story. And I'm not sure that that's true. It's the or not million, but infinite monkeys on infinite typewriters for infinite time eventually produce Hamlet. The problem is you have to wait infinity. And we generally don't have infinity. So my question for all of you, is Facade successful? Does it tell a compelling story? Does it work? Type. What do you think? Does Facade work? Most of the time, no, from Jared. Yassine says it was fine. Su Yi says they think it works. Ben, the characters were just so unlikable. I wasn't able to invest anything going on, and yet you disliked them. So even a negative reaction is a reaction. It's better than I didn't care enough to pay attention. Whole game feels more funny than compelling to me. Right, it is. Let's be real. Facade is janky as hell. Right, half the time they don't seem to hear what you're saying, what you're typing. Half the time they're reacting to something you said 3 sentences ago. It is interesting learning more about the characters in each playthrough. And it think about this in terms of the total experience that you have with Facade. You really, I think it's incredibly rare. I think Nick in the other class, he said he got them to stay together on his first try without really having a strategy, just talking to them. It is definitely Su Yi. It's definitely a multiple playthrough type of game, right? So think about this: when you play a choose your own adventure book, or when you read a choose your own adventure book, right? Most of the choices lead to "and you died," right? And then you go back and you go back a couple of steps and make a different choice, right? So the experience of the choose your own adventure book is not just I had a single story and it started here and it ended here, and that is my story, and that's the only thing that I experienced. It is an exploration of the possibility space of all the choices you can make, right? So I mean that's the fun. What if I chose differently, right? What if I did this? What if I went left instead of right? So here in Facade, one of the things you're doing is, well, what happens if I disagree with them? What happens if I tell Grace that yes, her interior decorating is terrible, or no, her interior decorating um, is great. So it's exploring the different choices you make to see what happens. But you are right; it is annoying that not all the prompts had characters react. It is a limitation, or possibly a problem with text parsers. If you can type anything, then your whatever program, whatever algorithm is reading that text, uh, you can't program it to recognize every sentence you can possibly type in, right? So I have to assign keywords, right? So Facade works off of keywords. It recognizes grace, it recognizes trip, it recognizes love, yes, no, like, bad. Generally, the positive and negatives, right? I don't think it matters if you use the and it and all of those kind of small words that connect larger words. Um, so if you know what the keywords are, you can just start typing those keywords at the right moment and get a good outcome. Um, but those keywords are selected so that uh, normal sentences will include them. So the kind of wonderful thing about text adventures is when you type something and it seems to understand you, right? It sees you. When you try the totally crazy thing and it says, why would you swallow Drano? Your stomach will dissolve. And oh my God! So they knew that I would try to swallow the Drano. Oh my gosh! Uh, there were some times in my playthroughs they responded way differently than you expect. Yes, exactly. Sometimes you're talking to one and they think you're talking to the other. Part of that is because of proximity. Um, it thinks you're talking to whichever person is closer, and sometimes the other person will sneak up on you. I've had Grace, like I'm facing Trip and talking to Trip, and I turn around and Grace is right behind me, and it's like um, and because she snuck up on me, whatever I thought I was saying to Trip, it reads as I'm saying it to Grace because she is closer, and it assumes that I am talking to Grace. Okay, so. So in the Glassner this week, there's a bunch of techniques, things like foreshadowing, a lot of which you already know. So like during Witness, um, when when John Book is showing the kid the gun, when I looked at the chat, it's like, oh, the kid's going to shoot the bad guy at the end, because now the kid knows about the gun, right? And then we hammer it home with Eli showing him the gun and saying, this is a gun of the hand. It is only for hurting other humans, right? Um, who I would only shoot the bad men, right? So the expectation is that in Act 3, because we spent all that time showing the kid the gun, that the kid is going to need to use the gun. In Jurassic Park 2, which is a terrible movie, I admit, Jeff Goldblum goes back to the island, right? And he's got a daughter in Jurassic Park 2. And in the beginning of the movie, he goes to see her or pick her up at some gymnastics competition, right? And we see that she's on the uneven parallel bars, and she's amazing at it, right? And immediately you know that that is a skill that that person needs that is going to help her escape from dinosaurs, right? Because we are in Jurassic Park. And lo and behold, later in the movie, they're in a tower building, and there's all these steel bars. They have to get up to some door or some switch or whatever. And she is the only one who can do all the spinning and gymnastics to get up there. And then, of course, they're separated because she's way up high and they have to run from dinosaurs. So that's the kind of foreshadowing stuff. That's one technique. There are a bunch of others in the Glassner. Please read it. They're good writer techniques. One of the other things he talks about, and I want to talk about, is the social contract between authors. Here, I can stop this. You don't need to stare at that anymore. Between authors and audiences, or game developers and audiences, right? So when you make a game and you put it out there, the contract is that I spend hours and hours of my life making this thing, and it will deliver an experience that will, if not make you laugh or make you cry, at least reward the time spent in some way. Whether that's an emotional reaction, or you'll get really good at some Twitch skill, but you will have a good time with this. In return, you will give me money so that I can eat and feed my family. You will give me your attention, right? And in many cases, attention is worth more than money, right? Because if you, like right now, the number one thing you all have is your attention. What do you choose to do with your time? You have, and by spreading, you all have social groups, even online nowadays when we're all isolated. And by saying, hey, like Karen and I earlier were like, Assassin's Creed. Oh my God, you play Assassin's Creed? I play Assassin's Creed. Oh, have you played this one? Have you played this one? Oh, yeah. That's the kind of thing that now you guys all saw that. And you're like, maybe I should play Assassin's Creed. Maybe. Trust me, Assassin's Creed Unity is probably the worst Assassin's Creed, unless you're really into Paris. It's the French Revolution. But by us talking about it, maybe they sold a couple more copies, right? Just because you guys were listening. So you give me your money, your attention, or your time, essentially, and you try, right? Um, in a game, it's I'm going to try to do the things that are put before me. In a straight up story, whether that's a novel or a movie, you are going to do what we call a willing suspension of disbelief, right? So if I say, hey, there's dinosaurs on this island, you're not immediately going to say dinosaurs are extinct. You're going to say, how are there dinosaurs on that island? And I'll say, well, let me tell you, we found dinosaur DNA in amber, and we replicated the dinosaur DNA, and then we cloned dinosaurs. Doesn't that sound plausible? We could probably do that, don't you think? We cloned a sheep. Why can't we clone a dinosaur? It'll be fine. Just trust me. Dinosaurs. We're good. Right? Um, and everybody goes, okay, yeah, sounds reasonable. Okay, there are dinosaurs. Let's move on. That is willing suspension of disbelief. In uh, uh, video games, it's okay, there's a machine, and we can tap into your DNA, and now you can relive the memories of your ancestors. And so now you're in the French Revolution. Go. Okay, I'm in the French Revolution. Oh, and you're a really cool assassin, and you can do all these moves. And now you should fight. Go ahead, fight. Okay, I will fight, and I try. Right. Um, this can break down. Right. Where you've all done it, where there's a point where it's like this game doesn't know what it's doing, right? So yesterday during I was cooking dinner, I get one mission of Assassin's Creed during dinner while pausing it and running in and out. I have to go save Napoleon's girlfriend, as you do. So I talk to Napoleon. Napoleon says, hey, you got to meet up with this guy. He'll take you to my girlfriend. Save her. Right? Okay, great. So I go find that guy, and that guy has to take being the guy in an office in Assassin's Creed can be a little annoying. Yes, it can be. So I go find that guy, and he has to take a leisurely stroll to the girlfriend because he goes very slowly. So, and every 5 to 10 feet, he is attacked by gangs of thugs. And so I have to save him from the gangs of thugs. We finally get to the girlfriend, and she is just sitting there saying, oh, I am in my apartment and bad guys are coming. Bad guys come in waves. I get to like the fourth wave of protecting her from bad guys. And nobody's annoyed by this as a spoiler. It's not really, it's a quest, right? It's just stupidness. Somewhere around the fourth wave, she decides she wants to walk into the middle of all the fighting. Happens. Of course, we're in her apartment and there's furniture everywhere, right? So she gets stuck on a couch. Yes, exactly. She gets stuck on a couch. And so I have to get in between the couch and the wall, where there are 3 bad guys. And none of my like parry animations seem to work because there's not enough room. So they kill me. Sadness, right? Okay, well, I start back up at the friend, right? I don't have to go all the way back and redo the quest from the beginning. I can talk to the friend. He starts his leisurely stroll to the girlfriend, but now I know his path. I know which way he's going, right? So I just start killing all the dudes along his path. I get to like the third set of dudes. Where's the guy? Where I lost the guy. I see he's walking a different way than he did the first time. And I go running back to him. And before I get back to him, the little dot on the mini map that shows him disappears. And I go running around looking for him, gone. And the quest has reset. And now I got to go talk to Napoleon again. And I'm thinking, this game is janky as hell. I'm not sure. Well, so there's time sunk also. If this were one of the first quests, I'd be like, do I want to keep going? This is stupid. Not sure I want to keep doing this. Am I going to go over this? But I'm probably, I don't know, 15, 20 hours into this game at this point. So sunk cost fallacy. I put this much time into it. I might as well keep going, right? So I'll probably keep going. Also part of the social contract between, I only have 3 minutes. I talked too much about Assassin's Creed. Part of the social contract is that I describe to you before you play or read or watch what kind of experience this is going to be, and you decide, hey, that's pretty good, I'll give you money and start it. So I want to play just very quickly. Share screen. Okay, we're going to play this.
Meet Jack Torrance.
I'm outlining a new writing project.
He's a writer looking for inspiration.
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Meet Danny.
Hi, Mr. Torrance.
He's a kid looking for a dad.
There's hardly anybody to play with around here.
What's up, Doc?
Jack just can't finish his book.
I don't want to sound melodramatic, but there's no way to make it economically feasible.
Here's to 5 miserable months.
But now, sometimes what we need the most is just around the corner.
I'm your new foster father.
I'd do anything.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill,
I love it.
I could see the city light. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things, I've come to take you home.
Shiny.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Annie. So based on that preview movie trailer, what kind of movie would you say that is? Just based on what you've seen. It's a Hallmark movie. It's a family movie. Straight to DVD movie.
Oh my God.
It's a family comedy, sure. Maybe like a dramedy, right? Where the family has problems and they something happens. There's probably a love interest. Maybe dad's a widower, and he falls in love with someone, and whatever their problems are, they get taken care of over the course of the movie, right? Maybe the kid's a genius, sure, or maybe he has magical powers. In fact, in the movie itself, the kid does have magical powers. But this is a horror movie. Some of you already know that. It's called The Shining. It's based on a Stephen King novel. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick. And in fact, things do not end well for anyone. Yeah, listen closely to the sound of the big wheel on the carpets. There's another great documentary called Room 237, which all the fan theories that have sprung up around The Shining since it's come out. It's really great. The Shining is an incredibly scary horror film. It's a ghost story, and my I always use my wife. My wife hates horror films. She does not like being scared. If I showed her this preview, she would be like, "Oh, I'll watch that. I I like that kind of movie." If I showed her the actual movie, she would divorce me. Well, maybe not divorce me, but she would be like, "Don't suggest any more movies." Um, uh, are there jump scares? Is there hard? I don't know. There's kind of like dread in The Shining. I recommend it if you're looking for something. I believe it's on Netflix. It's really good. Stanley Kubrick. It starts slow. It is very scary.
First time it is very scary.
It's very scary. I will just tell you that.
You gotta watch it though.
Not really jump scares, more like existential dread. And it's ghosts. They are caretakers at a hotel in Colorado over an incredibly hard winter. This family, Jack, the Torrance family, Jack, Wendy, and little Danny, and the giant hotel that they're supposed to be taking care of is haunted, and the ghosts hunger for souls. I'll leave you with that. So, when you're making something, it's important to be upfront with the tone of that thing, right? So this was a problem. The Double Fine game, Full Throttle, not Full Throttle, the one with love your background there, Zach.
Love that, Zach. Okay, now I'm gonna have to hunt that one out.
The rock and roll game with Jack Black that Double Fine made. I forget the name of it. Starts out as kind of your typical action adventure game, and about halfway through becomes a real-time strategy game. And people who played it got very upset, and it is one of the most, they called it a bait and switch, because you got me here to play an action adventure about Jack Black being transported to a world of rock and roll. And I got I got here, and now suddenly I'm playing real-time strategy, and I don't play real-time strategy. What did you do? So the same thing can happen in games. So, okay. It is 4:54. Play D&D, do the reading. I will be back at 3 p.m. on Sunday to play the Stanley Parable if you want to watch. Do the reading, and have a good weekend. Stay safe, wash your hands, and enjoy yourselves. Bye.